Okay, re-recording.
Well, announcements and highlights. I think the really big one is that 4.1.1 has been in pre-release. I did not go through and dig up any other really exciting things. If anyone wants to give any big shouts at. Oh, I do have another exciting thing. Didn't fuzzing go live? Fuzzing is live now, so that's pretty cool too. Maybe that happened before, but we have a handful of bugs that fuzzing has reported, which we should fix.
Did you say that it has reported something?
Yes, we do have some fuzzing bugs. Those bugs right now go to like the TSC as well as to Teddy and me. And I think I added Alessandro onto that because I thought maybe he could actually read and think about them.
Yeah.
If anyone else wants to get fuzzing emails, like we can add you onto that list of things.
You can add yourself. Yeah. So I would say just go to the OS. It's fuzzed through OSS Fuzz. So if you go to github.com/google/OSS Fuzz and look for the Osquery project, you can add your email address there. I don't know what sort of access control they're applying, but I'm sure we can just say approve unless they just approve it.
Yeah, like tag Teddy or me or something, and we can flag it as legit.
Yeah, I would say if anyone can, if you do add yourself there and then you see reports being generated inside the issue tracker, if you can move those reports over to GitHub issues.
I can probably do that.
Yeah.
There's maybe 5 of them right now.
Yeah. One thing that it's flagging is the boost regex hang that you already knew about, Seth, that you created an issue for. It's not like there's any security impact here. It's mostly just correctness. But it also flagged other hangs within boost regex outside of regex split, but in the normal just regex match. So I think we should try to move to STD regex as soon as possible.
I'd agree. My take from a bunch of having read those, none of them struck me as major security issues in that they all felt a bit like if you feed Osquery a bad config file or otherwise bad data, it might crash unexpectedly. So you're sort of already starting from a privileged place. But I kind of want to fix them so that it can look for new things.
Yes.
I was partly letting the boost to standard regep stuff, I think, would make a pretty good first PR for someone who's excited to jump into the C++. I'll try and pick it up at some time otherwise, but if anyone wants to get their hands into C++, I think it's a well-contained change.
Definitely. Yeah, we could increase the coverage to be more focused on like attack surface, like things that let's say a low privilege user on a system could control. And so the compromise would be just like preventing Osquery from working or somehow shutting it down. But right now the fuzzing is focused on correctness. So by all means, please add all of your friends to the list. But my ask is if you add yourself, be prepared to do some like follow-up work.
People have other things they want to highlight since last meeting? Okay. Are there any PRs people want to bring to the table, especially sort of non-regulars?
Yeah, is anyone here because they want some help with Osquery? Office hours are supposed to be helpful. Cool. All right. Hey, so 4.1.1 release. I have a couple requests and questions. First is the PR on github.com/osquery/osquery-site is ready. I would like to land that right now. Do we mind doing a quick look at that? It adds the hashes for 4.1.1 and the schema change. Let me post that into the Google Hangout.
I'd rather look at it after the meeting because, at least for me, actually verifying the hashes would take some focus. If someone else has that focus, then they can look at it. But I'm happy to review this and push live after the meeting if you want.
Cool. And then I wanted to get thoughts on when we should push to repos. So the packages are available in S3 right now. If you know how to construct a URL to download them, you can. And so when those hashes go live, then the links will just be there on the website. But pushing to the repos is delayed. So I wanted to make sure that there wasn't any outstanding issues. Because as we saw before, a lot of people have their infrastructure configured to like automatically pull the new version. So a lot of people are going to get Osquery installed when we push to the repos.
I would say 1 or 2 weeks.
I don't want to encourage bad setups, but maybe we could have a testing channel where we
Testing
publish
channel has what?
as a repository.
Well, what's in it?
In that channel we publish right away.
Nightly or this?
This, I mean,
Okay.
as soon as it is released, and maybe also release candidates if we
So,
wanna.
I would ask who would use it.
Yeah, true. And people that do not have a deployment strategy.
I mean, I feel like anyone who kind of probably hasn't of a deployment strategy can probably also just download the packages. So like, are we helping enough people to do that? Like, is the maintenance cost worth it?
Yeah, I don't know.
The next release, so switching from 4.1.1 to talking about 4.2.0, what do you think? Like, should we start landing some things into master right now and preparing for that milestone? Like, one, defining what we want it to be, when we want to achieve it, and then start making progress right now towards it.
I would say yes, but that's just because I feel like 4.1.1 has been up and published for a good amount of time. Like if there were any serious bugs that we needed to address, I'm hoping at least we would have caught them already, but that's just my 2 cents.
My gut sense is that it's a little bit sloppy for us to start merging until we push to the stable packages, but I think we should do it anyhow because we're a comparatively small project and I don't like leaving PRs dangling. So I'm in favor, but you know.
I really want to see the end-to-end testing work that Stefano has done and that everyone is, well, actually, if you look deeply in it, there's more than just Stefano working on it, but all of that work I'd like to see land in master ASAP.
Yeah, would be nice. So
I said I think I'm fine to start merging 4.2.0. Like if we really discover some major bug, we'll figure out how to deal with it.
Okay, so then what is 420? What do we want to define it as?
Actually, but before we ask that, is there anyone who wants to hold off on merging things that are nominally not part of 411? Okay, so we're basically going to call 411 done, recognizing that we might find bugs once we push it to the stable repos, and we're going to start merging in 420 things, and that means that if we discover we need a 412, then we're going to, push some new features accidentally or something. So, cool. So be it.
Works for me. So you were asking what the
About
theme?
the next milestone, yeah, we have to find a way to cache dependencies on Windows. It is becoming increasingly hard to do Windows development. I think it should be a priority.
Cool. What else? Anyone else have thoughts? Priorities for team?
So the couple of things, the things that we're sort of muttering about right now continue to be in the build and test framework, which seems fine. I don't know if there's any kind of more core feature work that people want to think about. Events has cropped up. Or if, I think there's still a lot of value in trying to get our general build and test stuff into a smoother place where we put less effort into it.
Yeah, we should think about what the users would appreciate as well as us, because we're thinking about improving the build again. But will that be exciting for anybody? I don't know.
The thing I'll also say, right, is even if we say what we're going to really try and get out the door is the test stuff and some more build automation stuff, there's still going to be a slew of bug fixes and table work that ships, and all of the infrastructure is just there to support shipping tables in some ways.
Yeah, I'm reacting to recency bias in that Kafka, there's discussion in two places of wanting to have the Kafka loggers on Windows. So then I can generalize that to having feature parity between all the platforms as something that users would appreciate, but also requires work on our end to get the third parties to build on all the platforms. And then that exacerbates the situation of long build times on Windows. So if we seek to improve the build times on Windows and our end goal is just having feature parity, I think that blends like two things. One, we can appreciate, developers can appreciate, and users can appreciate. It does to me feel a little bit short-sighted. Like I think there is something stronger that we could work on that would be more of have more of a wow factor for people using it that we could include in 422, but I don't know what that is off the top of my head.
So is Kafka disabled in Windows?
It is, but there are a slew of other tables that would be appropriate for Windows, and we just, in moving fast, never did the porting of building the third-party libraries that they depend on to Windows.
Mm-hmm.
LibMagic is an example. I'm not sure if Yara is another example, but this is where
Yara doesn't currently work on Windows, I don't think. But I thought I saw, I could be making this up. I thought I saw either a PR or a issue. Someone had tracked this already, but I could be wrong.
Okay. How about perspectives from people who are more day-to-day working with users of Osquery that can bring some kind of user stories to the mix? Like, is there something that people are consistently asking for that we have made some progress on that we could prioritize for 420?
I know that I would really love to see, and I think someone asked for this in an issue, a Windows event log table. So we have the Windows events table, which is an eventing table, but it'd be really cool to have a table that would let you search through the Windows event log, Windows event viewer, where you could like pass in filter strings and it would, give due date ranges. I would use the hell out of that.
Is that just because you find the general command line tools for Windows horrible?
I mean, that's like 90% of Osquery on Windows is I just want to use the same queries and I don't want to use the Windows ones.
I think one of the things that we see a lot at Collide, and it's a little hard for me to pick apart whether this is because of my own expertise or because of Osquery, is, more better Windows support, right? Like I am primarily a POSIX person. So when I think about security checks, tables, et cetera, I come at it from a POSIX side, and Windows is this very foreign world to me. And that's, I think, true for many of my coworkers. So there's a large amount of, well, we've got a really good set of things in the Mac side, but like the Windows side feels a lot weaker. And I don't know if are there Windows people in office hours? Cool. But so I feel like there's I feel like there's a parity gap, and I'm not sure if that's Osquery or my fault.
I think that's Osquery.
Yeah.
It's a bit of both.
I noticed the same thing in looking at some of the. So my mode right now is just like bug hunting, and I think the only contributions I'll have going forward is just like looking for bugs and fixing them. And one thing I noticed is a lot of the Windows tables could use love in like error handling. A lot of the errors are like silently swallowed, and then there's some practices about like using data, as well as like some things that could be abstracted into quicker APIs. When I say using data, I mean just like if you took an optimization eye to a lot of the tables, you can make them faster. Yeah, I think something that anyone, if you don't have familiarity with Windows, you could still add some value by just going and looking at these tables and giving them like a critical second or third or fourth code review.
Yeah, if people are looking for low-hanging fruit PRs to just get started on Windows, a really easy thing you can do is bring the optimizations of, what was it, like column plumbing, this thing that we did with a lot of the Mac OS tables where you only render the results of queries if the column is actually used in the query context. Those are super easy PRs that you can bring to Windows, and it will greatly help performance on those tables.
I agree with the sentiment. I don't know how easy that is. One of the things I see is that a lot of the Windows APIs are very foreign, and they do not seem that easy to layer that onto.
Sure. I just mean to say, oh yeah, all right. So I will see, you are right in the sense that some of these tables need to be refactored and have things abstracted into functions. But there are, like, the one that comes to mind right away is the interface addresses table. That already is somewhat abstracted, and you could, I think I had a quick stab at this doing it, and it didn't take too long. Like, I think there's some tables that you might actually be able to really easily add in the plumbing. But yeah, good call. Refactoring is hard.
So someone just added batching of writes to the database and evented tables.
I did, yeah.
Is that specific to Windows, or is that more broad?
I know Windows has this issue. We fixed this in Linux.
Okay.
It is going to cause quite a lot of locking and CPU usage until we fix it.
Okay, so it is a parity gap.
Yeah, I can add on a lot of things here, like the XML parsing that we're doing for Windows events, which is a very CPU-bound table, is not performant. We should switch to something like rapid XML.
Yes. Dude, yes. This would be so amazing. The other big problem is there's data loss in that table. Because we're doing this manual parsing of the event content into JSON, we're missing out on like the extraneous values. So if you subscribe to Windows Event Log and you have a provider that has custom fields, you might not get those in the Osquery event logs. And it's because we are not doing like an exhaustive, complete XML parsing. We're just like coercing things to try to get as many as we can.
Have you got an example for this that we can track in an issue?
I'll put one together because not off the top of my head, but it's not any of the main Windows Event Log providers. It's like if you have a custom one where you've set up a bunch of custom fielding, we likely won't get that custom fielding. Like with all of the main providers, you get, I think, all of the fields, the data elements. I'll see if I can put together an example.
Nice, thanks.
Okay, so it sounds like we could maybe set a goal of just improving Windows, and we can bring a lot of these things we're mentioning into issues and then figure out which ones we want to subscribe to the milestone.
Seems reasonable.
How about the continuous build of packages? Like, I would love it if I am not in the loop for publishing packages going forward, and that was all automated, or at least like anyone on the TSC, or there's a specific group of people that we define as a GitHub team can produce these packages. The goal of producing them more regularly and reducing potential for human error in the process. I know we talked about this before as being something we wanted to shoot for 4.2. Is there still eagerness around this, and do people have time to invest in this?
I have some thoughts, sort of. I think that we should not tie this to a release. I think we should do this whenever we feel like we can allocate ourselves to do it. And, to some degree, as soon as possible is always the best answer. One of the things we've talked about somewhat in tickets is the idea of pulling package and signing into one sort of repo so it has its own set of CI tools and leaving the builds in the other one. And this is partly to make it hard, basically reducing attack surface for PRs to exfiltrate keying material. I think we were generally interested in that. One of the stumbling blocks that I keep hitting a bit is that CMake and CPAC are not tools that are very native for me. So it's very slow for me to get going. I would generally like to see this as sort of as creating one set of, basically, we should create some kind of CI job in the Osquery repo that builds an official looking binary and shoves it into an artifact store somewhere. And then we can kind of develop the signing and packaging scripts somewhere else that consumes it from there. I think that flow will be easy for us to work with. I'm happy to sort of make that out into milestones. I know we've been yammering about it in a couple of blueprint tickets. I don't know, does anyone want to counter propose something? Problems, solutions?
You mean that you want to basically go around CPAC, not use CPAC to do packaging?
I don't know if I want to completely take CPAC off the table, but I don't want to use CPAC in the Osquery repository.
I think, yeah. Okay, Teddy.
Bye, Teddy. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. I would keep actually. CPAC has the official way to generate the packages. There has been a discussion. We might have to look at that again. I mean, I don't want to list again and the various positives about CPAC. But in general, the thing is, it's since we already have CMake, which is able to extract and provide information about packages and what you need to create about packages, and CPAC is integrated, and it works pretty much everywhere. I will keep it. Also, what we have talked about was to have the main Osquery project output TouchZ with a specific layout. That TouchZ can be taken by a second project, probably these separated project. Again, using CPAC, you can describe how you expect this layout to be, and then generate those deb, RPM, etc. It is just that CPAC is very convenient as a layer, as a generic layer in front of packaging. I would keep it. Then this enables also to use other tools from the TouchZ, because if you don't want to use CPAC, you can use something else.
I think the most important thing is to split into that. The main thing does a tarball, and then something else consumes it. And whether we start with CPAC or a shell script, like if I'm going to write it, it won't be in CPAC, but neither will I stop someone else. So I'm fine with that. I think it's most important that we split them, and I think it's important that we split them because of the way code signing works.
No, yeah, definitely. Well, that's a work I want to do. It's just that, yeah, we have had a long list of other things before that. But yeah, definitely, that's something on my list.
So maybe we should try and split this up into some tickets and figure out how to actually action it.
Yeah, also because there are other details, like right now the CI is controlled by 12 bits. If the question is, and it's not easy to give access to it. Actually, not because we don't want to, but it's not easy. So we also have to talk about concretely about how we want to set up the signing part, where concretely those signing keys are stored, and who has access to those operation, etc., etc. So.
I would be inclined to talk about this in tickets, but if people want to talk about it here, we can.
All right, I'm back. What did I miss?
We continue to think that splitting the build and packaging flow makes sense, and we continue to be unsure about what the packaging tooling should look like, but generally we're all willing to do whatever. And I think Stefano and I maybe are going to try making some tickets about it or something. That sound reasonable, Stefano?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, from the keying material needed to publish packages, the GPG key that signs packages for Linux is in the 1Password, and the certificate for macOS was my certificate, which I'm not going to put in 1Password because I don't want to violate any Apple terms of service. But it sounds like we made progress on becoming a 5.0.
I'll talk about it later on in this meeting.
Okay. And so that is a little bit, we're on to the next step there, so that's good. I would just wanted to make sure that I'm not in the critical path and blocking anything that we could publish packages. The last thing that comes to my mind is we're hosting them off of an S3 repo bucket that only myself, Nick, and other people from Facebook have access to write to. I see a couple possibilities here. One, we can set up some key that allows to write to that repo or to that bucket, so that whatever publishes packages can publish them. We could set up another bucket. Most of this is behind a CNAME, so we can change that to some other infrastructure too if there's another way to host packages. I think, again, we're at a point where like we can choose how we want to move forward.
I want to tack onto that too, because I have the signing key used for the Windows deployment to Chocolatey. So like whatever we end up doing with TED and your keys, we should do the same with mine.
Are those Nick Anderson keys or are those Osquery keys?
No, it's Nick Anderson.
Okay.
What do you sign the chocolatey ones with? I don't know that signing infrastructure.
I have a script that grabs
sorry,
all of it.
What's the keying material?
It's my personal Digistr code signing key.
Thank you.
And I also do this for the MSI that we publish to the site. The advantage of using this signing key is that currently you won't get prompted by the Windows little interstitial. And it's because we've got enough executions with my signing key that's not a problem. I tried to get an EV code signing cert back in the day when all this started, and it was really difficult. And so we didn't do that, right?
So I looked at this for Collide.
Yeah.
The requirements for EV code signing certs are sort of a huge pain in the neck. Really, the biggest non-starter of them is that EV code signing certs must have a requirement that they only be distributed in hardware tokens. There's some discussion about whether cloud HSMs can work for this, but I haven't finished running that riddle trail. For Collide, I got a standard cert, and we found that it did not take us very long to get an appropriate amount of reputation.
Yeah, it goes pretty fast.
It might be just fine.
I think if we get somebody else's key, if we get another key that's associated with just the Osquery Foundation as opposed to my signing cert, I think we'd be okay.
Yeah, I would expect, a release of warnings and then it'll be fine. And there's nothing for us to do but bite the bullet.
Yeah. I'm happy to continue signing packages as well. Just like it is something that we should have on our radar because I don't want to be a point of failure.
I will try and work with Stefano and Teddy and Nick, I guess, and we can make some tickets about how this should all maybe gel up. There's a blueprint for some of it, so we can kind of continue in there and split some off.
Sounds good.
My gut sense is we should not reuse the Facebook bucket. We should move into, Osquery things, and whether it's an AWS bucket or a TCS bucket, kind of doesn't matter.
Another follow-up to that, Ted. I don't know how much you manage AWS stuff, but like the account under which all of this is sort of notorious for not being pleasant. So I'm imagining that it's a matter of time before they change a lot of it and lock it down, and it might become less tenable for us to have that as an option.
Yeah, that's fine. The only concern with moving it to another bucket that isn't managed by Facebook is the cost.
Well, I don't know what it costs, so I don't know how much of a concern that is.
Neither do I.
But in all seriousness, Osquery doesn't have that much data. Like, we're not talking about terabytes here, so
I hope not.
I don't feel very worried about that yet.
Yeah.
Next up is Facebook changes. I assume this is a big thing that Teddy did. So the work I did was just going through and reviewing every single change and determining how applicable it would be to merge into GitHub. And the applicability is like, is it changing code or is it changing like Facebook integration-y things? And there are no instances where it's like changing code and then I make a call that says like, oh, we don't need this on GitHub. Vast majority of the changes are integrating it to like Facebook stuff. When I say that, I mean like we have a lot of internal tooling around measurement, package distribution, testing, and end-to-end, most specifically end-to-end testing. And this is what so
the result of all the things that are like core Osquery changes is now in the HackMD document. I wanted to work over the next couple of weeks to get all those changes merged. It's going to take me some time, but right now I just wanted to give a preview of like what stuff would come in, what to expect.
Cool.
Anything that was like critical over time, like is already there. I forget exactly what it is, but like if there's like a big change or like a big bug fix, like it's already in the code, already in the GitHub code.
Yeah, looks like cool stuff. So big thumbs up. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever backport some of our test work into Facebook?
I do, yes.
Cool.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you for being that bridge.
Like to be completely clear, like my priority is Facebook. So what I do is I look at all the changes to GitHub, and like if I have some time, I'll move them over to Facebook. Less of a priority is moving the Facebook stuff out, but it's less of a priority, but it has to be done. And so like I'm holding myself accountable to make sure it is done.
It's an uneasy tension, right? Because it has to get moved into the public side. Otherwise, the changes we make will never be integratable.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, thank you for bridging the code repositories, Teddy. I know it's a lot of work. So I feel like there's always a question of like if there's things we can do to help, you know.
The testing, like easier testing, I think makes it much easier. So like if I can trust in the tests, that makes the work almost brain dead simple.
Yep, and I think the issue Teddy opened about reworking, refactoring a bit the code to make it more easily testable. It's the base for doing that. Because the problem I've seen is that it's difficult to write tests for parts of a table, for instance. You can only test it as a whole, but then the table hides many errors. So you just receive, for instance, an empty column, and you don't know if that's fine or not. And yeah, we should have more introspection inside things from tests.
Next agenda item we have is whether anything is worth sort of tweeting or blogging about. 4.1.1 release is, of course, an obvious thing there. Not sure if anyone's got anything else they want to throw out.
Well, you could make an open invitation for people to suggest new features and issues. I don't know how many people read the Twitter that maybe just don't follow the GitHub or the Slack, and maybe they would like to participate in the driving of ideas.
Yeah, one thing I would advocate for is someone to write a blog post that we can put on the website, which is what to expect in 4.1.1. Maybe the title, the goal of the post is encouraging people to upgrade. And the way you do that is by talking about some of the new features. And if we had that, if someone wrote that right in Markdown, then on Twitter we could link to that, and also we end with a like, what other features are you expecting from your EDR, so on and so forth, that you would like to see in Osquery. So we could accomplish the goal that Mike suggested by using that like what to expect and encouragement to upgrade. as like a moment to capture people's attention. But that would be a lot of work to write that blog post. It's not easy to do that. So someone would have to volunteer to do that.
This would be discussing all updates as of the 4.0 branch. Is
I
that?
think so. Yeah.
All right. Release.
Maybe I'll mitigate. It's not really all updates. It's kind of, whatever you feel
Important.
like writing about that seems notable to people.
Yeah, the user-facing valuable things.
User-facing is fuzzy too, because like I don't know, one of the extensions that Collide maintains, I was finding that it just kind of worked a bit better in the 4.0 branch. Like the way the constraints come across worked better, and I didn't dig into it very hard, other than just to observe it was kind of broken weirdly in the 3.x branches. So I feel like there's kind of a lot of things that are just like everything works a little better. So, yeah.
I mean, there's probably over 100 bug fixes.
Yeah. Can move down our list here. Restoring FreeBSD.
Yeah, I put that there.
It would be nice to restore it.
Yeah, open-ended.
What's wrong with FreeBSD?
I think we couldn't restore it. Stefan knows more, but we couldn't have a job on Azure, at least not easily, that could test FreeBSD.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the reason. The other reason actually is a bit connected with, again, the tool chain. Though the last time I tested was the old tool chain, so I'm not sure what happens if we use the kind of the latest FreeBSD on Osquery right now. But I expect some issues. I mean, there's a lot of if I recall, basically the port when the experimental branches has been created, there haven't been a full port FreeBSD basically, so there are things left behind. So yeah, there's again work to do on the build system, the tool chain, and things like that. I don't know how much, but
Is BSD used internally at Facebook?
Yep. Yeah, but like, so we don't have a FreeBSD expert working with us. So you get a lot of like, the code written would work on it, and through the existing tests, like it builds. But then again, we're looking at GitHub, we have all of the same problems we've dealt with before, which is we don't have access to a CI that can do that sort of testing. And the third-party management is open source versus internal, where it's kind of taken care of for free. So I guess in adding this to the list of like things to talk about, I'm not advocating that we should look into it instead of spending time elsewhere. I'm more of advocating like, is there a FreeBSD expert out there that we could ask to spend some time looking at this, help us get it working, and then we can make the decision of whether we want to invest in some CI for it.
Unless we have spatial tables that have to do with internals, I think any Linux developer can at least make it run correctly. Yeah, the problem is the CI, I think. We may have to get a machine elsewhere outside of Azure. For reference, what kind of versions are you using internally?
I don't know anything about FreeBSD, so I couldn't answer that.
Is there anyone we can speak to?
Sounds like a no.
Yeah.
My guess is this is going to hang out until either we find an easy way to add it to CI or we gain a community member that's like really psyched to do it. So maybe it's just going to be kind of an open call for someone who's psyched to go forward with it. I added Python 3.5 here since that is a thing that's currently blocking the open source fuzzing stack.
Yeah, I've opened. There's a PR open that fixes it.
Oh, nice. We have a
And,
PR already.
Yeah. And removes also the limit for 3.8.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I repeated. Basically, the reasoning there was that when I did the change, I was about to have all the Python test PR, let's say, being merged, and then I noticed that like the last 2 days on Azure, they updated only on Windows. They updated Python to 3.8, and several Python tests were not working anymore. So it felt a bit strange, this fact. So I was worried that updating those Python tests to 3.8 would remove compatibility to from the previous version. So I wanted to wait, basically, just. But since we are currently we are slowed down merging, etc., there is a bit more time to look into it. So
Your PR has merged, by the way.
yeah, I've seen it. Okay.
Thank you. This is the item was boring. So I wanted to give folks a short foundation and organizational update. Last week, I had a call. I called up the Linux Foundation and chatted about what the organizational structure is, which helped me a lot. So Osquery, the Osquery Foundation has a much longer and funnier name, and it is a Series LLC under the Linux Foundation. We are a 501c6, and I have our tax ID number. And yeah, so that's kind of cool. I am now pursuing getting us Apple code signing certs. So hopefully that won't be too hard. I've also been kind of looking into all the other like little things like GitHub and Slack and all of those things. I've sent all of our information to GitHub, though I haven't heard anything back from them yet. That was like late last week. And I have reached out to Slack to see if we can move over to Slack's nonprofit. Slack's nonprofit is not looking good, as it appears to maybe only be for 501c3 charities, not 501c6s. So we may not be able to get access. We may not, saying this differently, we may have to keep paying for Slack if we want it to stay on a paid plan. Currently, Facebook is paying for it and probably has forgotten about that. So like we cannot rock that boat, and we may find it suddenly gets rocked out from under us. But that's what it is.
Now we're aware that we're paying for it.
Bummer. Hush, Teddy. Close your ears.
It's a minor contribution compared to Teddy's time. Just like, Trailbits might be running this Azure thing, but if it costs a few dollars, that's really nothing compared to, the big picture. So,
I mean, it's certainly less. Okay, so we pay about $1,000 a month for Slack. I think I could probably just say that.
Yeah, I think it's several $1,000s.
It is about $1,200 a month.
that's more than I would have thought.
Yeah.
Slack isn't cheap. I imagine at some point we will have to tackle that, but probably right now Facebook is still covering that. I don't understand the internals there.
Just to ask the probably unpopular question, we're sure that we want to keep paying for Slack?
I'm not.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, do we have to still have the paid Slack? Like, I know that the search history and the archive history is super nice, but like, maybe it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah, so someone just sent Slack for nonprofits as a link. It turns out Slack for nonprofits is primarily a C3s. We're a C6. Nick, yes, that would kind of be my bias, is that if Facebook decides they're not up for paying for it, I am not sure that we would want to fund it to the tune of $1,000 a month for searchable history. I don't know that trade-off is there for me. I want to keep talking to Slack a little bit longer because I don't know if we'll be able to find other routes. And I don't know Facebook's constraints here either.
I
don't either. I'm not sure what org. Ted, do you know who's paying for it currently? Okay.
Yeah, it's not at risk, but I do include it as an item in the budget each year. So if we find we're not using it, not getting a lot of value out of the complete history, then we could just go back to normal Slack. I think if at a later time you decide to pay for it again, so let's say we're like, wow, we were getting a lot of value out of it, we then instantly get all the history back.
They keep it, right? Yeah, so you mean they just turn it back on? Okay.
Correct. And there are alternatives, like you can add a bot to Slack, which will export your messages to some archive. I'm not sure we want to do that either, because then we lose a bit more control over the data. So yeah, it's something to think about. Not a concern though. We don't have to figure out right now. I do like now that we have more legal details, we can then pursue some of these options. Like the issue with GitHub is we are on Facebook's like massive enterprise plan, which sounds like a good thing, but it's not, because it's holding us back from beta features that GitHub provides. So if we can get off that enterprise plan and onto like the $7 a month plan, we get access to a lot more features in GitHub, of which like we need to use some of them. Specifically the website publishing. Right now we have to publish it manually, but if we had access to actions, then we could trigger the publishing automatically.
We might have access to actions now that it's gone live, but there's like triage that we... Anyhow, we're pursuing this. It goes forward. Yeah. So GitHub's going forward. Slack is maybe on hold. Apple, I'm still doing research for. There are foundation tickets for all of these if people want to like kind of get, an infrequent update from me. Otherwise, I'll kind of,
What about AWS?
I'm not aware of AWS having a nonprofit thing. I haven't done research there. I know that Google does not have a nonprofit thing. So other expenses we do bear right now is we have a Google G Suite for kind of holding official Osquery email things. Mostly we decided we could self-fund that if we needed to. And I haven't looked at AWS. To be honest, my bias is to try and use Google, mostly because that's what I use in the day job. So I know its platform a little bit better. I think the costs are going to be the same, and we haven't really talked about it.
And okay, let's investigate that stuff, because like consolidating some of the AWS stuff under Google such that we can remove AWS from like list of things would be awesome. Right now, AWS provides CloudFront, which we need because people have tried to DOS us several times before. So we need some sort of termination and caching.
CloudFront or Cloudflare?
The one that AWS provides, sorry.
Front.
Flare.
Front. Yeah, we'll go through it. I feel like there's this long separate infrastructure from Facebook and move it into Osquery lands, and we can like evaluate as we go.
Yep. Any final items?
Yeah, Arch Linux support. We have Anatol here, who is an Arch Linux developer, who is going to publish packages. Hello.
Hello, folks. My name is Anatol, and recently I was needed to install Osquery and Collide on my home computer, and I look at this as an opportunity to port Osquery, these two packages to Arch Linux. And I would like to share some findings about this process. And I first of all, I would say like I didn't know about this Osquery project till probably several weeks ago, and that's why for me it's I learned a lot about this project. And from other side, it might be interesting for you to understand like how people like me like trying to learn about the project and like what they found. Okay, so one of the ideas behind Arch Linux packaging system is that it tries to avoid vendorization, like trying to put all the dependencies into a single package and instead use system packages as much as possible. So that's why that's one of the things that me and Alessandra worked on last week, and we did pretty good progress there. I can share my code later a little bit, but along the way, I'd like to also mention a few issues that I met. The first issue is that Arch Linux uses Python 3.8, and that's why we reverted this restriction that had been recently added to at the master branch. So we're using Python 3.8, and we don't see any problems there. Also, Alessandra changed default toolchain to GCC, and maybe Alessandra can share a little bit more information about why it was done, like why Clang cannot be used at Arch Linux.
Yeah, so the reason there is that, well, for starter, the reason that we have Python 3.8, Stefano can elaborate more, but there is a pending pull request.
Merged.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're too fast. It has been just merged.
Thank you, by the way, for fixing it.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for fixing it. 3.8 Python.
Well, thanks for doing work and bringing it up. We're happy to have more people involved.
Yeah, so it was a requirement for a pull request that has been just merged. The reason I was using GCC to build on Arch was because by mixing GCC and Clang, I was having linking issues with lib unwind, which we require. I didn't investigate too much into this. I don't know if there is a way to fix it. We can maybe open an issue and see if there's anything we can do about it.
Does LLVM has its own version of lib unwind? Like, is it a compatible library or what exactly the issue?
So Stefano might know more since he built the new toolchain.
Yeah. So the issue here is that the whole system on Linux has been, well, kind of a hardwired with our need, which is having a single toolchain which can work on basically any version of Linux and can output a binary that can work on basically any version of Linux. This means that there's a lot of static linking in the toolchain itself, meaning many in many LLVM libraries, instead of having those libraries separated in their own SO, they are all statically compiled. So this translates in using slightly different options in the CMake system, etc. So I don't think. I think that the only thing we have to do is really just add another option in the CMake build system with a set of different flags. I don't think we are specifically we need specifically the lib unwind support, the lib unwind version of LLVM versus GCC and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, Alessandro provided a set of changes that switch it to GCC compiler, and Osquery can be compiled with GCC. It creates a lot of warnings. Some of them might be useful for you folks. So take a look at the warnings. All right. So I was trying to devendorize the build system, and all the packages, all the dependencies are system dependencies now, like with the set of changes that I just shared over the chat, except one project, which is Smart Tools. Smart Tools used by Osquery is a fork of upstream Smart Tools with some additional changes. So I'm not sure what's the best way for Arch Linux to handle the situation, whether we need to have like Smart Tool fork package or maybe just keep it statically compiled. So we will look at
Thank you,
that.
Nick. Bye. So I don't think there's anything we can do about it. We have hard dependencies on the changes made on the fork.
Yeah.
And this fork was made by a previous contributor of Osquery.
Yeah. So Smart Tool fork adds a possibility to link against the library. So basically, it adds the API and library layer to the Smart Tools, and it might be useful for upstream to have this kind of feature.
Haven't we looked at moving like off of a Smart Tools fork? I forget where that landed.
Yeah, we didn't. What I ended up doing was migrating the repository from the fork to the Osquery organization. And as far as I know, what we need there is not compatible with the upstream library. And even the versioning has been reset and started from scratch. It is currently without any maintainer. So I'm not sure whether it is worth to ship this library through the system packages.
So, I mean, maybe until Smart Tools has a maintainer and has some forward motion, we can't do much on that one.
Yeah, I think we should probably start looking at those changes in our fork, see if there is any chance we can upstream them, and then switch to the upstream library.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think these kind of changes are useful for upstream as well. All right. So the next item is that I was trying to bump Thrift version to 0.13 and found that the pre-generated version of the files kept in Osquery tree is not compatible with this new version. So I regenerated to with the latest Thrift version. They're pretty much minor change except that stop using some boost stuff and uses C++, recent C++ features. By the way, why Osquery stores generated Thrift files in the fork tree?
So the idea was that if you do not have Thrift installed, you can use the pre-generated binary. And in the future, we would like to, so this has to do with our reproducible builds. Mm-hmm. So it could also be applied to the Flex and Bison output we get when generating the OGS library. So yeah, the idea is to allow the user to regenerate those files, but also have the same exact copy that has been used to generate the upstream binaries, sorry.
But Osquery build already compiles Thrift. Is it possible to compile Thrift generated binary and then use that binary to create these generated files?
Yeah, in theory, you could. I was wondering if you have guarantees on. Sorry?
I was saying, while that might be possible, I have a couple of concerns. One of them is guarantees about sort of compatibility. I think things like thrift definitions are one of the things that's really important to have clearly versioned and consistent. I think also it's easier for the downstream consumers. So like the other OS languages, the other language APIs, they need to get the same compiled thrift stuff. So I feel like there's some conflict.
The protocol shouldn't be changed.
Protocol, it's a lot of shoulds for thrift.
Yeah. So here's the change.
Yeah, I think the concern here is that we want the output to be the same as the one used to generate the Osquery binaries on the release page.
I mean, we could talk about shipping the thrift, the compiled thrift things in the releases if we want that. But I don't know, I guess if the build process allows you to remove and rebuild it, is there a problem if we keep it checked in? Like, what is this a problem we have to solve right now?
No, we can keep the file checked in, and when we want to regenerate it, we can just delete it, and CMake will do the rest.
Or if it's possible to regenerate using some CMake flag, that will be useful for us.
Sounds like RM.
Yep. All right. So the next item is that I tried to bump Debian DPKG library and found that upstream has some minor changes in API. So I updated the source tree to match that API as well. It's a pretty minor one. And the last one is that Osquery compiles at Arch Linux except the very last step, linker step that fails, and some changes to CMake files need to be done. I'm not sure how exactly, like where exactly in CMake those changes need to be done, but I provide instructions to Alessandra. And yeah, after that, like with these changes, I was able to compile binary at Arch Linux that does not depend on any statically linked libraries.
Yeah, first, thanks for the instructions, and I will look into it. Yeah. Concerning the DPKG library, the reason we're not updating to the latest version. We didn't check this yet, but we have to make sure that the library we are using is able to correctly parse deb packages on any of the distributions we have to target. The oldest one is either CentOS 6 or Ubuntu 16. I don't know which one is older. But yeah, if we can see that the latest version works fine, we can just upgrade it upstream.
Debian folks are pretty good with backward compatibility. All right, so once those CMake changes can be done, I will try to create an official Arch Linux package and then push Osquery to community repo. So installation, Osquery installation at Arch Linux, it will be as easy as pacman-s Osquery.
Nice, sounds good.
What are the next steps here?
DPKG.
Yeah, CMake files. So I have changed for DPKG, but I need CMake changes that remove some flags from linker command line. And that's CMake magic that I don't really understand, and somebody needs to look at that. Let me share the instructions. 1 second.
So maybe next steps, update DPKG and thrift. Updating thrift is a little scary because that's sprawling. That's like the communication point between all the SDKs.
Yeah.
So I'm very wary of anything that touches that.
The instructions. All right, that's it on my side.
So what? I mean, I guess to sort of circle back on that a little bit, like what I'm trying to understand is what are the next steps for us or for you? I'm looking at the diff tier branch here, and I'm not super up on the build system, so maybe an Alessandro or Stefano question, but like, can we just start merging in this source layer? Like, split this up into like safer things? Can we merge in the source layer changes and then look at upgrading DPKG and then kind of like take these on one at a time, or what?
The DPKG library can be updated pretty easily on our end. The rest of the changes there, mostly the system layer can probably be merged, but we can probably just wait until we have everything in master ready.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can split if we need.
I guess it's up to you. I find sort of smaller, understandable things better, but.
And it might be a great time to review all the dependencies and then bump to the latest stable revisions.
Yeah, we had an issue there because we were still depending on pre-built binaries that were being shipped by Facebook. And for example, we couldn't update OpenSSL to the latest version because we would cause linking issues. So I guess this is for the next milestone also, updating at least the most important dependencies we have, like OpenSSL.
It sounds like Facebook updated OpenSSL 1.1.1 was in Teddy's list of things he might backport, so I don't know how that'll shake out.
Yeah, so I've left a couple of comments inside the OpenSSL formula. It should be easy to port it to the latest version. I'm not sure about the remaining libraries, but yeah, we will take a look at it.
Is something to remember, right? Osquery has a lot of dependencies. And, trying to do things like say, let's update all of them. That's like a huge amount of work, having already seen several people go through getting it to where it is. And I kind of imagine most of us at this point are on things will get updated when we need them to get updated. So like if, someone's excited to do the work of updating a dependency or updating some dependencies and, it can pass CI, I think generally we'd be happy to accept that work. But, barring someone stepping up and doing that work, I don't think anyone's going to go through and update all the dependencies to current.
Well, we're getting pretty good, me and Stefano.
Archlinux has all the dependencies up to date, and once I have this Osquery package ready, I'm gonna test it on my home computer.
My only concern there is the support for CentOS 6, because again, we still have to do that work, which is actually trying to build all those libraries directly on CentOS 6 and verify which flags it uses, etc., so that we can use those flags when we build the libraries, so that the libraries are compatible with CentOS 6. And this means that though I've already seen that, it can happen that updating those libraries, the kernel there is on CentOS 6 is too old for the changes that the library has. So that library, even if we compile it on newer, even if we compile Osquery with all the correct flags, etc., on the newer Ubuntu, it will not work on CentOS 6. It will crash because the library do not support anymore CentOS 6.
Agreed.
So yeah, there's a bit of a tension there. We need to decide, understand what to treat the compatibility with CentOS 6 and probably 7, things like that.
Yeah, some libraries like libudev and libdevmapper use kernel headers, and they need to match each other.
Yeah, I'm mostly worried about the library using a syscall that's not present in all the kernel and do not provide even a fallback for it. So, I mean, you can still take out some kind of syscall fallback from the hat and patch the library. But yeah, it's a bit of work.
Okay.
Should we first program to technically have the launcher? Crossfire.
Okay, well, maybe some PRs will show up or something between all the people talking. I think I took the notes on that. Does anyone want to raise anything else? No one else seems to be unmuted, so either I fell off or...
I was muted.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
No
sorry. I was going to ask Anatol if he can check out the notes and see if there's anything missing in the next steps.
Sure. I will talk to you directly, and we will try to figure out how to make all the changes.
Ben, you just sent something in the chat channel that I don't understand.
Yeah, so you have to take a look at the action column in the row you're looking at. See if it is either a bind or a connect. Because if it is a connect, you will naturally see the local port and local address set to 0. While on a connect, while on a bind action, you will see the opposite.
Okay, and there's no way to resolve those values, correct?
Well, they are correct. The event you get from the audit system does not send you a remote or port or address for a bind event, and vice versa. You will not get any local port and local address for a connect.
All right, thank you.
So the correct approach here would be to track both the socket system call and the connect and bind, and then remember which FD has been used, and then complete the system call data with those things. For example, if you were to bind a socket with a local address, then you could use the same address on the connect event. But so far, we are not doing that. We are just reporting the raw system call, which does have some additional information because audit decorates the events with additional data, but it's not as advanced to implement something like this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anatol. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else they want to bring up? If not, I would probably say we're done. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Yeah, and thank you for your notes. As always, you're really good.
I'll let everybody know when the YouTube video is ready. As usual.
Okay, guys. Let's see you on Slack.
Okay.
Bye.